And we're here again talking to you about the two shall become one. And what does it mean that two is better than one according to the Word of God? So today we want to really explore the option of what does it mean to be standing as a king and ruling as a queen, in that sense where both have the same ability to put their strengths together and be able to work as a team.
Yeah, so it's really exciting to learn more about what those strengths and the things that we can learn from each other in our relationships.
So one of the things that I think we need to, I guess, understand is when you get into a relationship and you wear a crown as a king and tiara, is it?
Yeah, crown.
A crown as a queen. You're given power and authority to be able to rule in your home, to be able to take a position that will strengthen your relationship when you learn to collaborate together as husband and wife and merging those giftings and talents together. So we want you to think along the line that if you're a king and you're a queen, what type of position would you have in your home, and how would you work together to make sure that your palace, which is your family, is going to be able to survive and be able to be different than the norm.
Yeah, and I really think, having a partner helps to bring about balance in your relationship. When you have a partner, they can see a different perspective. There are times when you may not be able to make a decision, or you don't see it because you're looking at something different, but your partner can bring about a balance. They can see a different view. They can see a different resolve that you might not be able to see.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the fact that there are different perspectives, because life is not just about what I want or what Kathleen wants, but it's all about how we can work together. And in order for that to happen, we need to be able to look at life with different perspectives, like what strengths are we bringing into the relationship, how are we really merging those gifts and talents that God has given to us, because I'll tell you, God has given both men and women some great giftings. I've worked in the secular world in healthcare, and I've seen that even some women, how they are given such an awesome ability to take positions as in leadership role. And then, there are cultures we talk about when you get into a marriage, sometimes those leadership are taken away, but yet they're given by God. So how do you put that together that couples can really function effectively in their home as a king and as a queen?
That's right.
So anyways, and I also think that bringing clarity.
Yeah, bringing clarity. Another couple can see that picture with a clear eye. We might be in the midst of something and it's a struggle for us, but when you have your partner come who might not be feeling that same way, he can see clarity in the situation. He might be able to bring some suggestions or things that can help, resolve that issue or resolve what you're going through or feeling at that moment.
I like that. And I also like the fact that, it's reciprocal as well. One of the things about two becoming one, or two is better than one, that I really, really appreciate is that when Kathleen and I got married, and it's over 35 years now, I've learned that we share each other's burdens in order to make the relationship work really well. So there are times when, you're struggling with your own personal issues, or you're struggling with work-related issues, or even, am I a good father, or am I a good husband? Or even, am I a good person? Because the baggages of your past sometimes do play in your mind when you feel like things are not going the way it should go. So when we're able to have these communication and share each other's burden, I think that's really effective.
Yeah, we have challenges. Each of us have challenges, and sometimes they're different than the other partner. But when one is weak, the other can be strong. When one is strong, the other can be weak. It's reciprocal in that way. I think also it's not just our issues or challenges, it's also our victories. We can share each other's victories. We can celebrate when one has great accomplishments or something that they've been struggling with and they've come through it. We can celebrate it together. So that's another thing. You don't carry those burdens alone, but you don't always carry the victories alone. You celebrate those together. So
what are some of victories that you think we can celebrate? Or couples maybe watching us today and say, hey, maybe we don't really celebrate victories. We always focus so much on the problems all the time. What are some of those victories that we can maybe encourage couples to celebrate, even the small victories, I would say?
I think some can be like financial victories. That's a big one. Maybe growing in your communication. celebrating, let's say, maybe you haven't had a lot of time together and you take that time out to spend the day together and you celebrate the uniqueness of your relationship. You celebrate that. Maybe one has written a book, like my husband's written so many books. I can celebrate with him when he gets it published or when it comes out and he's like so excited and the box comes, you know, by the door, and I can celebrate those victories with him as well.
I think some of the celebration I like to celebrate is the fact that looking at when I was single and comparing to being married, coming home and being able to work together, even like being able to cook a meal together, that's a celebration. Or even when you have children and you realize that you're stuck with maybe a behavior with one of the kid, or maybe the struggles they're going through, and you realize, wow, we really worked through that process. It's another celebration, right?
So you can celebrate education, you know, when somebody graduates, not just their children, but even spouses, because they go back to school and they celebrate their degrees. Those are great things to celebrate
Celebrate
together.
a new job, maybe celebrate even like sometime working together and putting, I think people need to learn how to celebrate life in general, right?
That's right, that's for sure, because there's so many things that can happen in a relationship, but we got to celebrate those small things that are important to us and continue to celebrate and remind ourselves of where we're going, what direction we're going in our relationship. So it's important to celebrate even the small ones.
One thing I like to celebrate is sometimes you come from work and you went through such a chaotic day, and one of the things that Kathleen has really I don't know, like initiated, I would say, is that instead of bringing all the problems to me that happens during the day with the children, maybe in school, or maybe a phone call that was disturbing, one of the things that we celebrated, she would just sit down and we'll be able to talk about, some of the good things first, and we get, almost, I guess, timing, right?
Yeah, it is timing, because sometimes you may have had a tough day and then you come home, you don't want to hear all of the toughness of what your other partner has been through for the day. Sometimes you just need to debrief a little bit. You need to relax a little bit, kind of get into your home is like your safe place, right? It's a place you want to feel peace, and then there'll be a time once you've kind of decompressed a little bit, had your coffee or tea or whatever you have, and then you can kind of come into the conversation. But I learned at an early stage in our marriage, when we started having children, that as soon as my husband came back from the work, it was not the time, as soon as he came through the door, to share everything that went on in the day that was chaotic for me, even though I need to talk about it. But I just had to wait for the right time, just get settled in first, have supper or coffee or tea or whatever, and then get into the conversation. So it's not that I didn't want to talk about it,
right.
It's just looking for the right time to talk about it.
And I've also learned that when a thought goes through your mind or there are triggers from certain things, you don't just bring it to your spouse and have an explosion. You need to be able to process it first and then go through it. So we're going to take a short commercial coming up very soon, and I would like to maybe give you an opportunity to think about what are some of the things we really celebrate, because as believers in the Lord, and even some of you who may not be Christians watching our show, the concept is, if someone were to tell you not to think about a pink donut, your brain eventually just goes right into thinking a pink donut. If someone says, pink elephants don't fly, your brain starts thinking, I wonder if pink elephants don't fly. You start looking at elephants, start looking at pink elephants and thinking, yeah, pink elephants don't fly.
At Team2, we believe in the power of connection, because 2 is always better than 1. Through therapy, workshops, and retreat, Team2 gives couples the tools to heal, grow, and build lasting love. Join us in saving relationships, strengthening families, and restoring hope. Donate today, because love is worth fighting for.
Welcome back. I hope that you were taking some time to ponder on what are some of the things you celebrate in your relationship, rather than focus on the pink donuts or focusing on the problem all the time. Because the more you focus on the problem, it seems like your whole relationship become problematic, and that's not God's plan for your life. God's plan is for us to celebrate, because He knows tomorrow, and because God knows tomorrow, we need to learn to trust that whatever those problems are, that God is going to make a way, but your brain needs to be conditioned that there is more victories and more celebration than the negative things that comes in our way. And I think that's something that we have worked on really well in terms of instead of focusing on the problems, because imagine raising 7 children and you know, you probably heard me say it a few times in our show, working for $22,000 a year and raising 7 children with a mortgage of $1,700 and all the other bills that comes with it, it was impossible. But God had to take me out of that mindset of, instead of focusing on what we did not have, focus on what we did have, and learn to celebrate as though we have everything. And as a result, God just brought us through that channel of where our faith grew stronger. And today we can truly say that God has brought us from where we were. So we have learned that in the process of difficulties, because one of the things that we have learned that regardless of how long you've been married, there will always be stress in your life. So why allow stress to affect you? Focus on celebrating. Even those little baby steps that you're taking, you need to get the brain to be conditioned that there are more good in your marriage and more good in your relationship rather than the bad things that comes your way, because our minds automatically switch to all the negative things we see around us instead of the positive things.
I agree.
You agree?
I agree. And I think another key point in talking about relationships, like successful relationship, success in relationship is not about keeping score.
You almost said something else.
I almost said something else, but that's okay. It's on relationship.
Oh.
But it's not about keeping score, right?
It's not about keeping score. I think that's very interesting. You know, I have a scripture in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 and 10 from the NIV. It says, 2 are better than one because you have a good return for their labor. If either of them fall down, one can help the other.
Right.
Isn't that amazing scripture?
That's a great scripture.
I like that 2 are better than one. And sometimes we think in our relationship it's just one carrying the weight of the relationship because maybe they're working a lot, or perhaps they're bringing more money, or maybe they're more dominant and they're the ones with the A-type personality that seem that they're the go-getter. But the one who is not the go-getter, like maybe the extrovert, or the one who's considered maybe not as decide that they don't want to work and they want to raise a family, or both are working but one is may not be working, making the same amount of money. The marriage is not about a competition, right? It says the 2 are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. And I think we need to understand that labor is not just like working and making money. Labor is also like carrying the home and carrying the relationship and carrying the marriage. That even raising our children, when we go to their homes, it's really interesting to see how they're very organized, or they take care of the home. They're not living in I don't know, slumber or squalor, but they are really taking care of themselves. And that's something you go there and they prepare a nice meal, and it's almost like the life that you choose to live became a blueprint for your children, and those are things to be celebrating. So in case you're saying, what do I need to celebrate on, those are some things as well.
That's right. And going on, just finishing off about the keeping score, who's contributing more. It's not just in, like you said, the jobs, it's also household chores and different things. I think we keep ourselves too busy arguing about or talking about those kind of things instead of just seeing who's stronger in what area and working together on that.
You know, and as we started the show with being a king and a queen in the relationship, it comes back to the fact that not every day the king is going to be strong, or not every day the queen is going to be strong. So you really need each other to work together to make it happen. I think that's the key, is what is the goals that you're setting for your relationship? What are you hoping to achieve in 3 months, 6 months, a year? Usually what I do is I have a short-term goal, a long-term goal, and I call a miracle goal, but only God I know can do it. And I'll tell you, God has brought us through a lot of things that I would say a miracle goal. Like even right now, you're probably wondering where we are. We are in a cruise ship. Hopefully you can join us someday.
That'd be fun.
So let's continue a little bit more in terms of how does the king what is the responsibility of a king. And I actually did a little bit of a research, And what I learned is that the king has responsibilities such as handling state matters. So what kind of matters are we handling in the home as king? Are we always complaining all the time, or are we looking at resolutions? And another thing I saw was meeting with advisors, and sometimes as a husband or as a father, we think that we just know it all and we just know how to make it work. But I tell you, we all need a coach in our life. We have God, we have the Holy Spirit of God coaching us, but sometimes it's also good to get some other opinions and see how other parents do things, or other husbands and wives. That's why we encourage couples to get connected with other couples, and you learn little bits and pieces from everyone else so that you can avoid a lot of unnecessary problems. So as a king, if the king's job was to meet with advisors and to review the laws, as I was reading here, making decisions about war and diplomacies and justice, and spend hours in the council chamber, I think we as men standing as king, we need to follow those kind of position. Our council chamber should be in the presence of God, where we wait to hear from the Lord. What is the direction of what is God speaking to us? What are some things that we need to maybe change in our marriage because it's so stagnant, it's not growing? Kind of listen to what the Lord is saying so that we can enrich our marriage and it's not become boring or become like very stale, I would say. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah.
Well, if you agree, tell me about the queen.
Well, the queen is really interesting when you study about the queen, the king and the queen's rule. It's still what we do as women today in our home. She was the one in charge of domestic policy. We as women love to make our home a place of safety, a place of peace, a place of joy for our husband, for our kids. And the queen was the same thing. She was doing that. She was making sure the palace or the household was run smoothly, and it was a big job because a lot more than just the amount of kids we have, but she had a big job. And we do that as women today in our home as well. Another one was education. And I think you and I both work in that aspect of encouraging education in a home. But at this point, the queen was the one that was really looking to educate the court and the people there, and she would go through and make sure that the people are taken care of and that they're learning and putting policies in place. Charities. If you think about the queen, she's the one that would go out, and you hear some of these, even the royalty today that go out and they sponsor charities and they work for the betterment of their country. And I think as a queen in our home, we look to better the world for our family, right? For our children, that they will have a safe place to grow up and that they will be confident and that they'll be able to love other people, right?
Absolutely.
Help other people in the community, help not just their friends or people they know, but we love to send our children out on mission trips so they can really see the needs out there and be sensitive to that.
Yeah, and we were looking also here some of the other responsibilities like hospitality and all of those things, but it doesn't mean it's set in stone.
Yeah.
I think you look at the giftings and talents of both husband and wife or king and queen, and you collaborate together because the ultimate goal is to create a castle, which is your home. You want to create a happy place. You want to create a place where your kids want to spend time in the home rather than spend a lot of time with their friends, etc. But we're going to take a short commercial, and I would like to encourage you to kind of think, what are some of the maybe roles and responsibilities that you and your spouse needs to kind of alter a little bit, because you need to work on these little areas of your marriage, that you're not in a competition, as you were saying, but you're in a collaboration, that we can actually see marriages become way more healthier and much more happier than we have been seeing. I mean, we travel so much to different churches around North America and Europe and do a lot of these seminars, and we have a lot of these questions come to us. And sometimes I think, some of these things can actually be avoided or eliminated once man and woman understand the God-given gifts that they have and how they can work together in a happy relationship. So take some time to just write it down. We'll see you shortly. Bye for now.
Love is a journey, not a destination, but a discovery. At Team2, we walk with you every step, guiding love forward. Here, every story matters, and every step forward brings light to love. Because stronger connection is the heart of every lasting relationship. Connect with Team2 today, because 2 is better than 1.
Well, welcome back to Team 2. This is Dr. Mungal and my wife Kathleen, and I hope you're enjoying our show today. 2 are better than 1, and when 2 work together, there's much more strength in a relationship than just one taking on the load. And I know we have had several questions in terms of, I feel like I am taking on the major role in our marriage, and what should I do? Or I feel that my spouse is not really meeting me to the level I need to, that the marriage needs to go. I want to encourage you that you're watching us today to understand that it's a shared responsibility. If you feel you're taking on the weight of the relationship, I think you and your spouse need to have a conversation, a discussion, as I would say, not an argument, because it does not work to argue over anything in life. There's always resolutions, and kids have a temper tantrum, but adults don't. You know, if the glass falls and break, you don't have to be explaining why the glass fell and break. You need to come up with resolutions, and husband and wife need to work on that type of, how would you say, dealing with problems, I would say, instead of getting angry and upset. Which leads us to the next point, actually, you know, in terms of like when we were in our younger days, one of the things I would say for myself, I don't know for you, I carried a lot of pride in the person I am, and I had a big ego. And the reason for that is because I became independent. I left my home, my parents' home at 17. I worked really hard, and as a result, I felt like no one was there to help me. But interestingly enough, you know, as you start to grow in your marriage and you start to develop and get more mature, you realize that ego and pride really does not have good results. It just makes your head bigger, and it also makes you very defensive in terms of, don't tell me what to do, I know it all. And I would say for Kathleen and I, you know, one thing I appreciate about her is that we are able to actually have discussions. We may not agree in everything, but we agree to disagree. Would you agree? To disagree?
I have to agree, I guess.
Okay.
But and one way we do this is establishing boundaries. We establish boundaries to ensure that neither of us feel overpowered or undervalued. And that can happen a lot in a relationship where one person is making all the decisions and the other person is just, okay, but then they maybe feel undervalued. They don't feel like they have a say in the relationship or say in any of the decisions that you make in your household. And we have to establish boundaries so that doesn't happen. So I'm not sure, how would you explain a boundary to make that happen?
Well, see, what I think about is that when there's struggles in making boundaries, where one is more dominant than the other, and they really don't know how to set boundaries because they feel it's maybe a competition, I think there's a problem there right away. You ask yourself the question, what is the cause of this? You know, is the cause that my ego is so big, or I'm prideful that I'm not willing to compromise? Because marriage is actually about compromise and complement each other rather than my way or the highway.
Right.
It's not about, you know, black and white. It's either my way or no way. It's about our way, and what are we doing to make marriage even better, our relationship better. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if you continue in the same footsteps that you're in right now with pride and ego and not really having boundaries set up, you're going to be a grumpy old man and a grumpy old woman, and that's not a good life. I've been around those in healthcare, and it's not really good. So I have learned even from those around me working with them is that I don't want to be like a grumpy old man or a grumpy old woman. So when you first meet each other, your boundaries are typically very big because you have to develop trust. You have to learn about each other in terms of how much you're going to get them closer. But when you decide to get married, that boundary needs to shrink. And the more you are in tune with each other, it's almost like the boundaries are very limited in sense where my life is no longer my life is our life, and we're working together. But that boundary is not set where everyone who come into your life, it has that closeness with you. And when your boundaries are closer, it means that you have put down your pride, and you have come to terms that when your spouse have a discussion with you, they're not trying to put you down. They're trying to correct the areas that needs correcting so that the relationship can actually grow better.
Yeah, and I think it's all on how you bring it across as well. If you're correcting your spouse and you're doing it in love, and it's all how you bring it across.
So
right?
tell me, how do you bring it across? How is love expressed?
Well, you bring it across. Well, you bring it, you bathe it with love, and say, you're doing a great job in this and that, and no, I can't say however. Okay, well, however.
Why can't you say however?
I don't know. However, I've been noticing you're having some struggles in this area. Can I help you? Can I make a suggestion? Would you be open to a suggestion in this area? So it's not like saying, I've noticed you've been doing this, and that's not really good. And it just kind of shuts that conversation down.
Yeah, I think the conversation comes across more like parenting, like don't do this, don't do that, or why are you doing this? That comes across more like a mom or a dad talking to each other. But when you come across more like, what can we do to improve this area? Like, I don't know, like, what would you say?
No, but I think you have to throw in other things with it. It's not just, I noticed this, what can we do to improve the area? Then you're still coming across
No,
as
but
a parent.
I mean, like, what are some of the things give an example.
You like to put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
An example would be, let's say you're having a conversation, and maybe I butt in the conversation or say something that turns the conversation around or is not relevant, and it changes the conversation. Maybe when you come, we have a conversation later, you just say, wasn't that a great time we had together? We had a great conversation. I love the point that you brought up with this and that. However, it was really hard for me to get back in that conversation because maybe you didn't notice, but you interrupted it. And what can we do next time to help in that area? I know it's a very generalized one, but you're putting positive with
It's almost
something.
that making me remind me of a lot of times that happened with
Yeah.
both of us.
Yeah,
Was I butting? Were you butting?
it doesn't matter. It's the example. Because we want to keep our communication line clear.
It's clear. But that's so funny. Anyways, but that's a very good example. It may not be the best example, but you need to come up with some ideas when you pinpoint certain things that you feel your spouse has been stepping on your toes. Instead of arguing about it and yelling and screaming and getting into an altercation, you need to find the right time when you can actually focus on what can we do to clean up this. It doesn't not feel good. Maybe I have a negative understanding of it, and maybe help me to understand a little bit that if I am having a conversation and you butt in and take over the conversation, it does not seem appropriate. Something like that. But there are other things, whether it's parenting your kids or family dynamics or whatever it may be. I think the idea is really, it's okay to talk about the okay things.
Yeah.
And be able to understand that as a king and a queen, your job is to rule the palace, which means you need to give a good impression of power as a husband and wife in your marriage, in your relationship, especially when you're in a community or you're among other couples. You don't want to give the idea that you guys are in a competition,
Right.
because that come across very negative, and it also is not good for each other because you keep bathing the mind with all these toxic negative things. So
Yeah, it's like saying, I noticed you did this. Well, you did that. And so you're competing instead of resolving the issues. You don't want to be addressed on that situation.
So as we wrap up today's show, I want to encourage you that as we talk about stand as a king and rule as a queen in Team 2, where 2 is better than 1. Look out for our next show next week. We will be coming with some more tips for you in terms of building your relationship, building a healthy relationship, building a God-given relationship, regardless of what the problems are. There are solutions. You're not the only person in the entire world that is going through the struggle that you're going through right now. So think along the line that how other couples have made it through, you can make it through as well. And we want to join our faith with your faith to believe God that great victories are going to come your way. So
Amen.
Until next time, we'll